Yes, February now. Made it past Groundhog's Day yesterday. 6 more weeks of winter, according to Buckstowny Phil. So I didn't watch the movie yesterday. Groundhog Day, my favorite movie. I didn't watch it on Groundhog Day. Yesterday's my wife's birthday, though. Groundhog Day is my wife's birthday. She did see her shadow, so 6 more weeks of homework. But she's a school teacher as well. But let's get looking at our lesson here. Let's go to our cybersecurity. Let's go to our grade screen. So February 9th is this Sunday. So 4.04 network monitoring. We just got a couple of weeks left for this module. Then we'll be moving on to the next one, but 4.04 this week. Here we go, network monitoring. What is network monitoring? We could probably kind of give a good guess on that, but let's see what they say. Network monitoring provides information to cybersecurity professionals on how securely their network is operating. Network monitoring software identifies deficiencies in a network. However, cybercriminals also use network monitoring to find vulnerabilities and weaknesses. Two-edged sword there. So let's watch this video to find out more on network monitoring. Okay, so I've got a video this morning. So let's 1 minute, 28 seconds.
It's time for a checkup. If you use a smartwatch or fitness tracker, you might already monitor your health on a regular basis. Your doctor has a whole range of tools available to check how well your body is functioning. By running tests, your doctor can find out whether your body is performing like it should and prevent small problems from becoming large ones. Much like human bodies, computer networks are complex systems that require maintenance and monitoring to maintain peak performance. Network monitoring provides information that administrators need to determine in real time whether a network is running optimally. Network admins are like the primary care physicians of the cybersecurity world. They can diagnose problems based on the warning signs and prevent bigger issues from occurring. With tools like network monitoring software, administrators can proactively identify deficiencies, optimize efficiency, and more. Sometimes cybercriminals also use network monitoring, which makes them a threat to secure systems. When misused, a network analyzer can hack passwords by sniffing the packets moving along a network, allowing criminals to gain access without authorization. Network monitoring aims to keep these cybercrimes in check by making sure all systems are healthy, functioning, and protected. So, is it time for a checkup for your network?
All right. Nice little video, get us started there. Let's look at page 2. Port, network, and vulnerability scanning. So intrusion detection systems, which we've been talking about in the last few weeks, IDS and firewalls are generally configured to detect malicious network scans. So either someone just scans your network, hopefully your IDS is going to pick up on that, or your firewall. So, but attackers have gotten very good at bypassing your network IDS and firewalls to expose your network vulnerabilities. Attackers use scans to profile a target. Scanning a network is similar to the way that a military unit plans an attack on a target. So they discover the location of the target, they note details about the surroundings, they find ways to send team members into the target's camp. Finding the point at which they can enter is the same idea as port scanning for the network. Works very much the same. 3 types of scanning. So there's port scanning. So that is used to list all the open ports and services, because your computer's not using 100% of everything that's connected to. So they're checking to see what's open. Vulnerability scanning, that's used to discover the presence of known vulnerabilities And then network scanning used to list IP addresses so they know what all's connected to your network. Objectives of scanning. So first, they want to discover the services that are running on the host computer. What all software you're running there. It wants to discover live hosts, IP addresses, and open ports of the target. Discover what operating system is running, because that makes a difference. And discover and exploit any vulnerabilities in the host computer. So attackers use the same tools and protocols as network monitoring and management scanning. An attacker normally obtains the IP address range assigned to a company using the domain name system, which is defined as service that maps the names to IP addresses on most TCP/IP networks, including the internet. So, or DNS. Addresses within that address range are then scanned looking for servers, their operating systems, the system architecture, and the services running on each one. So the attacker uses that information to breach the target systems and applications. Heat 3. So port scanning is frequently the first step that hackers will use to penetrate a network. And while port scanning isn't generally hostile, criminals often use it to steal or destroy sensitive data. So criminals use port scanning to discover specific information, like what services are running, which users own those services, are anonymous logins allowed? That's what they're really hoping, right? So you can have a harder time figuring out who they are. And what network services require authentication? So here's how it works. Port scanning works by sending requests to every port, asking to connect to a network. Right? So the scan will then take note of which ports respond and which ports seem vulnerable. And the scan will classify those into 3 categories. This is an open port, this is a closed port, and this is a filtered port. So in an open port, when they send that request asking to connect, the computer is going to respond and ask anything it can do because it's open to requests, right? If it's a closed port, the computer will respond that the port is currently in use and not available. Sorry, access denied, port is in use. Often hackers come back to scan again, sometimes to see if it reopens, because ports are, not used 100% of the time. They can find a time when it's not used. Filtered, the computer does not respond to the request. It could mean that the packet was dropped due to a firewall. So filtered out by something. The IDS system, the firewall, something filtered that out and they couldn't get a response back on that. But this is what they're checking and finding out. Scanning tools. So scanning tools are essential for networks that contain multiple devices. So there's several different scanning tools available that administrators and attackers both use, each with a slightly different approach to the task. So one of the scanning tools is called an Nmap, the network mapper. So Nmap, the N stands for network, is a free command line tool used to scan IP addresses and ports in a network and to detect installed applications. Nmap allows network administrators to find which devices are running on their network, discover open ports and services, and detect vulnerabilities. Here's what Nmap does right here. Recognizes all the devices, including servers, routers, switches, and mobile devices on single or multiple networks. It'll even tell if your phone's hooked into the network. It identifies services running on a system, including web servers, DNS servers, or other common applications. It can find information about the operating system running on the devices, and it provides detailed information such as the operating system version. Like not only are you running Windows, are you running Windows 11? What Windows version are you running? Then there's IP config. The IP config in Windows is an application designed to run from the Windows command prompt. This utility allows users to get the IP address information from a Windows computer. It also allows some control over network adapters and IP addresses. IP config. Let's see. So if we go down to this little search bar down here, sometimes you can, oh, this just doesn't have a where I can type. Oh, IP config. There it is. It's a run command, IP config. You can pull it up on any computer just by the little search bar down at the bottom. So Windows users, anyone using a Windows computer can type IP config from the command prompt to run the utility. Yeah, I ran it right down there at the bottom. The output of the default command contains the IP address, network mask, and gateway for all physical and virtual network adapters. So, ping and ARP. The ping command can be used to detect the presence of a host on a particular IP address or one that responds to a particular host name. So a computer's address resolution protocol, or that's what ARP stands for, address resolution protocol, can be used to show the hardware or MAC address of the interface associated with each IP address that the local host has recently communicated with. Knowledge check. Here's our knowledge check. This was a very short lesson. Let's see. Did this IP config do anything when I did that? It may be blocked since our run command. Let me see if I could click open over here. Let's see what it does. Oh, it opened and closed real quickly. It's probably because our network is locked down. It's locked down here by our network administrator. We're not allowed to get into that. So, all right, let's see. Match each question with the correct term. Okay, IP config, first one. Then open domain name system, that's at DNS. Port scanning, closed, filtered. So we need to match these with which category of port scanning that involves the computer respond to ask what it can do, in which category of port scanning does the computer not respond to request, what command line tool can be used to identify the network address configured on a Windows computer, what service is used to map names to IP addresses on most TCP/IP networks, including the internet, what is used to detect open ports and services running on target, and in which category of port scanning does the computer respond that the port is in use and unavailable. All right, so let's see. Let's start with the first question up here, and I'll open up the chat, take a look at that, and choose which one of these we think goes with that. Which category of port scanning involves a computer responding and asking what it can do? Because remember, a lot of times hackers will scan your ports, trying to find an open port, trying to figure out what's going, somewhere it can access your system. So remember, we had the different categories, and this came from the categories of open, closed, and filtered. So when you send a request to the port and it responds and says, yes, what can I do for you? Is that an open port, a closed port, or a filtered port? Which one of those came back from that? I narrowed it down for you. Open, closed, or filtered. Remember that one? That was one that was open. Yeah, it disappears. Open. Open one. It's open. It says, yeah, what do you need? Do you need to connect to this port? Let's see. In which category of port scanning does the computer not respond? Right? It didn't respond at all. They sent a request to the port and got nothing back. I bet some of these matchups are our questions, our 5-question quiz is going to have as well. I haven't looked, but okay, remember that one is filtered because it's probably blocked by a firewall or an intrusion detection system. They send a request and don't get anything back. It's probably because the request was blocked. It was filtered. Let's do the bottom one because it relates to the ones we've just been talking about. In which category of port scanning does the computer respond that the port is in use and not available? That was the closed port. Sorry, port's already in use. All right, so we got three things left here. IP config, domain name system, port scanning. What command line tool can be used to identify the network address configured on a Windows computer? Well, that's the one I tried doing there, and my network has it blocked, the IP config. We got two left. What service is used to map names to IP addresses on most TCP IP networks, including the internet? That the domain system or port scanning? Well, it gets real easy if we read the other question. What is used to detect open ports and services running on a target? Well, that sounds like port scanning. If I'm trying to detect open ports, port scanning. So this is the domain name system that maps all the names. So that makes sense as well. All right. Let's go. Complete the reading the lesson. Make sure you understand the concepts. And let's take the quiz that goes with this. So let's go to the quiz. Here's our assignment. You have 3 attempts. Which type of scanning is used to list open ports and services? Port protocol network vulnerability. Which category of port scanning involves computer responding to a request by saying it's in use, not available? Open, closed, filtered, blocked. Which scanning tool identifies services running on a system, including the web servers? MAC, ipconfig, ping, or nmap? Which scanning tool allows users to get the IP addresses information on a Windows computer? Which scanning tool can respond to a particular host name? So there you go. 5 questions. Straight up. Next week, we've got one of those IDS career connections assignments, followed by a project at the end of this one. So this will be something more than just a 5-question quiz for the project, but that's in a couple of weeks there. So, all right, guys, pretty straightforward. Learning about network monitoring, key part, you got to know when something's happening. So that's it for this week's lesson. This is an 8A Friday, so we have class Wednesday and Friday. If your grade's below 70%, I'll have class regardless, but you can come or not come depending on your grade. So anyway, have a great week, guys. We'll catch you next week.